And good morning. Let's start on section 19.3 in our math book. So turn to page 374, please. We are getting close to the end of the book, aren't we? All right, 19.3. This is angles and pie graphs. Remember back in section 12.3, we explored using pie graphs to represent portions of a whole. Well, now that you know how to draw and add angles, you can draw these useful graphs. Since the pie graph is a circle, we now know it can be thought of as having 360 degrees. We want to draw different sections within the circle so that they accurately reflect the percent of the total. For example, if we know a category represents 60% of the whole, we want to draw a section representing it that represents 60% of 360 degrees, which would be 0.60 times 360, which would equal 216 degrees. Notice that if you measure the angle the 60% section forms in the pie graph shown, you'll find that it does indeed measure 216 degrees. Okay, so the name of this pie graph is Age of Students in the Sewing Class. So let's move on then to the 25% section. Its angle should be 25% of 360 or 90 degrees. And if you look at it, it is 90-degree angle. Now, I think I've shown you this before, but I want to show you this again just to make sure you remember. Anytime that you see in math the word of, it always means times or multiplication. Anytime in math you see the word is, it means equal. It equals equal. Okay? That's what those terms mean. I just want you to remember that. So if you say, what is 60% of 360? If it says that, what is 60% of 360? Okay, I'm sorry, 60% of 360, because that's what it told us at first. So 60% of 360 degrees. That's what it was asking. Okay, 60%, remember when we write that as a decimal, it's just this. And then of is times, and then 360. So you multiply that, and that's how they got the measurement of, so let me show you. $216. Okay? And then they said the 25% of 360, when they did 0.25 times 360, they get 90 degrees. Now look at the bottom one. Our 5% angles would be 0.05. Remember, you got to put another 0 there. Times 360, or 18 degrees. And if you measure it, that's what it is. Look at the next page. Notice that the sum or the total of all the angles in the circle equals 360. This will always be the case. So the 60, if you'll look at this Age of Students in the Sewing Class, look at that pie graph. Now, the 60% is the 15-year-olds, okay? When they did 60% of 360, they got 216, okay? And then when they did the 25%, they got 90 degrees. Then the 5% all equaled 18 degrees. If you add all those numbers up, it comes up to be 360. So if you've done your math correctly, anytime you're figuring that out in a pie chart, then that's what it will equal. If it doesn't equal 360, then somewhere you've got a number wrong. All right, knowing what we know, let's move to the work text page, 19.3. Now, let me erase this. So, on number 1, it says angles and pie graphs. You can use your calculator. Now, there's a pre-election poll, candidate A, B, undecided, the percent of voters. The total percent was 100%. There's another little chart there, the pre-election poll, that they've made a pie graph based on the information that they've got. Now, without using a protractor, all right, so without using a protractor, find the angle of the section of the pie graph representing the percent of voters in favor of candidate A. So candidate A, let's see, they had 40% of the voters, and candidate A is the dark portion. So without using it, we need to find the angle of the section of the pie graph that represents that. So, let me make sure I'm understanding what this is talking about. Yeah, okay. So 40% of 360, because remember we're using a circle. So 40% is, and then times 360. Okay, so on our calculator, whoops, I messed up. So 144 degrees is what candidate A is going to be on the pie chart. All right, on B, without using a protractor, find the angle of the section of the pie graph representing the percent for candidate B. Candidate B is 35%, so that's going to be 0.35 times 360 degrees. And let's figure this out. 126 degrees on the pie chart. And then C, without using a protractor, find the angle of the section of the pie graph representing the percent of undecided voters. That's 25%. So 25% of 360, oh, that rooster's driving me nuts, is, I do believe this is 90, but we'll go ahead and try it and see. 90 degrees. All right, so now it says on part D, use a protractor to find the different angles on the pie graph. If you did your math correctly above, your angles should be the same as you found previously. So the angle of candidate A section. All right, so what needs to go there? Not sure what they want you to put there. Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, I see. On A, B, and C, they wanted you to just write this. On A, they wanted you to write this. On B, they wanted you to write this. And on C, they wanted you to write this. All right, and then on part D is where you're going to put your answer. So this answer goes on the first section, section A for D. This one goes on candidate B on letter D, and this one goes on the undecided. Then it says, oh, and then use your protractor at the same time. Use your protractor to go up there and measure those angles and make sure they measure about the same. So if you use your protractor for candidate A, you should get right at 144. And then for candidate B, you should get 126. And then for undecided, you should get about 90 degrees. So you'll want to check those with that. Now, on part E, you'll specify whether those are right, obtuse, or acute. And then on F, you need to add up all the sum of the angles. Okay, which you know what that should equal. Okay, on the next page at the top of 292, it says to draw your own. Suppose there is rainy weather, an average of 60% of the time in a city, sunny weather, an average of 30% of the time, and other weather, snow, sleet, etc., an average of 10% of the time. Draw a pie graph showing this. Use colored pencils or crayons to shade the sections of the circle. Be sure to include a legend that shows what color represents what. Hint, figure out what percent of 360 each percent represents. Then use that information to draw those appropriate angles inside that circle. Okay, so you're putting everything you know about drawing angles, making angles, figuring out the percent of the section of the pie graph and put it in there, and then put your legend with it so that we'll know what color represents what. Now, before you do that, look at section 3, thinking it through, which you can use a calculator. It wants you, we're going to go ahead and just use the circle itself to find area and circumference and that kind of thing. So on 3A, Find the area of the pie graph in problem 2 if it has a 3-inch diameter. You'll need to go back and find your formula for the area of a circle. Always write your formula first, fill it in, plug in the numbers, then do the problem. Okay? Then you'll want to do B, and then on C, you'll want to find the circumference. So you'll want to find your formula for circumference of a circle. And then on D, it says, what portion of the circumference is part of the section representing rain? I want to see how well you can figure that one out. Okay? Now, if you need any help, let me know. On part B at the bottom, 4B, it says on a separate sheet of paper, draw a pie graph representing the spending in that graph on 4A. I do want you to do that. I want you to draw that pie graph based on the information in 4A. If you have trouble, I'll be happy to help you with it. But I've walked you through enough of it. I feel like you should know how to do the rest of this. But like I said, if you don't, you need help, let me know. All right, that will be all for this lesson.